Hi, it's Amy Manco from the Ross Farm, and I'm here today for our very first episode of our new podcast slash vlog called Sheep and Wool School. And we're going to talk about all the things that I'm working on, um, as well as featured breed of the month. And each month it'll be a different sheep breed. We got about 1,000 of them, so it will take me a while to run out. But this month's featured breed is the Cheviot sheep, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first, I always like to start my day in the studio with a cup of tea. So I thought I would ask you to join me for a cup of your favorite beverage while we chat and maybe learn a little bit about the Cheviot sheep. So my mug today is from my advent calendar, which I just recorded that series of unboxing from the advent calendar. And it is from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. And today, I am enjoying a cup of Blackberry Sage from the Republic of Tea. That is my very favorite. And so I thought that would be a good one to start with. So I'm going to have a little sip of tea and we're going to get into it. Alrighty. So first up, our first segment is about what's on the wheel. So at my house, in my studio, I have some Gotland on my Schacht Reeves right now that I am plying up. Last fall, I went to the Highland Games in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and I was demonstrating spinning while Melinda was demonstrating shearing, and Drew was talking about our Scottish sheep breeds that we brought, one of which, spoiler alert, is the Cheviot. So he was talking about the sheep, I was spinning the wool, Melinda was shearing, and I had a lovely lady come up to me with a bag of fiber and said, "Can you spin this?" And I looked at it, and it was the most beautiful, shiny silver Gotland that I have ever seen in my life. And so I got out my combs because Gotland deserves to be combed. And I started combing it and then spinning it out of the cloud and on my Schacht Reeves. And she was very surprised and asked if I would like some more of it. And I said, "Oh, no, no, no. I will spin this up and ply it, and then I will send it back to you." Because it turns out this lovely lady was a weaver, but did not spin. So I have spun it up and I'm getting ready to ply it, and then I will mail it back to her so that she can use it as the warp in her weaving on her loom. So that's been very exciting. And I've also been spinning on my Daedalus Martin, which is currently my favorite e-spinner right at the moment. I wiggle around through 3 or 4 different e-spinners that I truly love. But this one is my favorite right now. I'm still waiting on the Louette e-spinner to get here. So until that does, I'm just going to continue working on the Daedalus. This is the Daedalus Martin. It packs up into its own little case here. So when I go to spin-ins or to guild meetings or whatever, I can just toss it in the truck with me and take off. So right now I'm spinning a little bit of Cheviot, which we have our fiber on the website. And then as soon as I get done with that, I'm going to start tackling the 25 50-gram bumps of my World of Wool advent calendar. So I'll keep you posted on that as I work my way through that. But right now, I'm spinning some of our very beautiful, very white, lovely Cheviot because it's the breed of the month. Next up is on the needles. So this segment is about what I'm knitting right now. And I was able just a few days ago to finish the lollygag cowl, which I am absolutely loving. Right now it is about 9 degrees here in Northeast Ohio, and I am very, very, very chilly all the time. So I am loving this lollygag cowl because of the double structure. It's knit as a tube. and then joined, grafted at the end. So it becomes this lovely double layer, very warm and squishy cowl. And I can put it on with my jacket. It goes right down into the top of my jacket and it stands up nicely and covers my ears. So I can put a hat on or not put a hat on if I'm worried about having hat hair. But this keeps me nice and cozy. And it's absolutely one of the favorite things I've knitted. I'm probably going to knit another one of these. This is going to be one of our booth samples for the spring because the colored yarn in this one is our Ross Farm Funky Cheviot, and the white or natural color is actually our Norfolk Horn yarn called Kevin, which is named for my favorite little Norfolk Horn sheep that lives in the UK with my friends Robin and Anne. So this is squishy and warm and absolutely delightful. And that's the thing that I just got off the needles. Now, the next thing I need to do is these are actually a pair of hose that I made for Drew because he likes to go reenacting. And these go all the way up to his breeches that I made for him a couple of years ago because he reenacts the Whiskey Rebellion era. And that would be basically Scottish farmers, which was my family. And they were rebelling against the government imposed tax on whiskey. And it was a whole thing in Washington County, PA, if you want to go look that up. But when he put these on for the first time, we discovered that his calves are wider than I think they are. So I need to rip these back just a little bit and um, add some width to the top of them so that he can get them over his big beefy calves. He's not a big beefy guy, so I wasn't expecting him to need the... He used to have little bird legs, but not anymore. So I'm going to add a little bit to the top of those. But this is the thing I'm most excited about being on the needles right now. So we have a designer I'm not going to name who has created a beautiful pattern that I can't tell you about yet. And I am part of the test knit. So I am knitting my booth sample for Nash Yarn Fest out of our Ashen Wensleydale, which is our UK Wensleydale. It's an Aran weight. It's very beautiful. I hope that you can see the luster in this particular yarn, but I am knitting the one of my samples for the booth, and it is the test knit for the lovely designer, um, who I cannot name yet, but that is the thing that is currently on the needles. So it's going to take about 5 skeins of my Ashen Wensleydale, which is about 186 yards of skein. And so it's going to take a little bit of knitting. It's on a size 7 needle, so, it's not like it's a 2, but my size, this kind of knitting kind of makes me want to lose some weight so that I don't have to knit anything so big. But, I say that as I'm contemplating another slice of birthday cake tonight because it was my birthday last week and there's just a little bit of cake left, and I might have to have a slice of that and just add a few stitches into that particular project. So, it's the part that we've all been waiting for. This segment is called Sheep and Wool School, believe it or not. And this is where we talk about the breed of the month, which I have alluded to. It is the Cheviot. Now, the Cheviot has a really, really interesting backstory. When I got into the breed in 1991, I sort of fell in love with the idea that these were the sheep that came out of the sea. There's a story that there had been a shipwreck off the coast of Scotland like 1,000 years ago. And when the ship went down, the sheep that were on the ship, because remember, there's no cold storage, there's no convenience store or grocery store where you're going, you have to take your livestock with you, whether you're going someplace to settle, whether you're going on an ocean voyage. This is not Royal Caribbean. So there were livestock on the boat, and as the boat sank, the sheep departed the sinking ship and swam to shore. And when they arrived on the shore of Scotland, they went up into the hills, and that's where they lived forever and ever. Amen. So we have reference in the historical record back as early as 1372 describing these hardy little sheep in the Cheviot Hills on the border between Scotland and England. And those sheep become the Cheviot sheep. And 1372 is about when we start to see references to the Cheviot sheep in the Cheviot Hills. Fast forward, the Cheviots make their way to United States, which was then already formed, in about 1838 with Scottish immigrants. So the Scottish immigrants, as they traveled to the New World, they would bring their livestock with them, and these particular Scottish immigrants brought their Cheviot sheep with them. So we'll talk more about Cheviots in the U.S. Next week on the podcast, but they get here in 1838, and by the 1950s, they're really doing well in the show ring, and people are really taking notice of them, and they start to become one of the more popular commercial breeds. And this is how I kind of became aware of them. I saw them in the show ring, and they have these cute little, you'll see photos in a minute, but they have these cute little rabbit ears, and they're chubby, but there's no fleece on their face, their ears, their legs, for the most part, their tummy, and sometimes even around their little bum. So they're very easy keepers and have a beautiful, clean white fleece. So there are 5 recognized breeds of Cheviots that we will talk about. 2 main ones, and then the other 3 kind of a little bit. So the Border Cheviot is what I started with because that was what was easier to find. Border Cheviots are the smaller of the Cheviots here in the United States. Then we moved into the North Country, which are the really big ones. And so some of the photos I show you today, you'll notice they're a much smaller sheep, and those were my North Countries. Sometimes we call them Northies. And then some of the photos are of our larger breeds, which is my North Countries. There's also the Brecknock Hill, the Western Hilly, and the Wicklow. And those are smaller populations, primarily in the UK. So, why do I love the Cheviots? Well, we have had them since about 1991, when it was my turn to take over the flock. I was looking for something that was a dual-purpose sheep. My late uncle had been raising commercial sheep, and they were just sort of a Hampshire, Dorset, Suffolk, whatever blend, because in my particular area at that time, there was kind of a system where we passed one ram around all of the sheep farms in our area, and then when everybody got bred, then he went to live with somebody else. That was not the way I wanted to do things. I wanted to have a breed of sheep that was good for registered livestock, registered offspring that I could sell, was good for wool, and would produce lambs that were marketable at the local auction. So I started doing some research, and I really fell in love with the Cheviots. So I brought those in 1991, 92. And by the time Drew arrived, I absolutely loved them. And so he grew up absolutely loving them as well. And he had his very first pair of bottle lambs that he raised himself when he was about 2 years old. It was just before his second birthday and then after. And they were a cute little pair of twins named Itsy and Bitsy. And you'll see some photos of those in the coming weeks. But Itsy and Bitsy started Drew's flock of Cheviots, and they're just the most delightful sheep. A lot of people think that they're flighty. A lot of people think that they're difficult, but they are practically a lamb-o-matic. You can count 5 months and 5 days and expect a set of twins to pop out, stand up, latch on, fill their bellies, and follow mom to the barn just about every time. So, Cheviots are the way to go. That being said, next week we'll talk a little bit more about their fleece. I'm spreading out all of the information about the Cheviots over the month of January. I'm encouraging all of you to participate also in our Anything Along. So you can use Cheviot from wherever you get it. You can get it on our website. We have fleece. We have roving, we have yarn, and we have quilt bats. Or you can support your local farmer raising Cheviot and purchase some there. But I'd love to get your feedback on the fleeces, on the yarn. It's not the softest thing. It's not merino soft, but it is extremely hard wearing. We'll talk more about that next week and all of the uses for the Cheviot wool. So, comment down below and tell me what your favorite thing is to do with Cheviot. Our next segment is going to be Finish It or Frog It. And this is one that I'm kind of looking forward to, but kind of not, because like a lot of you, I'm sure, I have some UFOs in my stash, some unfinished objects, and I need to make some hard decisions. So I decided on the podcast, we would open up these mystery project bags together and find out what's in them. And then figure out if they're going to be something that I finish, or something that I frog, or something that I never started in the first place. Because I have a lot of great intentions, and I get everything together, and I put it in a project bag, and I forget where I put it, and then, ooh, shiny, I'm on to the next thing. And it never sees the love that it deserves. So we're going to figure that out together. And I'm hoping that this will encourage you also to explore your UFO bin, bag, satchel, room, and maybe pull out some things that you've forgotten you had and work on them together with me. So we're going to see what's in these bags over here. I took photos of the outside so that we could put them up on the screen because they're really cute project bags. That's why I picked these four. And most of them have been gifts from friends. And we're going to find out what's in them. And then we're going to decide whether they're going to get finished or frogged. And again, I'd love it if you'd pop it in the comments down below. Anything that you really feel strongly should get finished, or anything you feel really strongly should get frogged. I'll take your advice. So let's start with the first one. This was a gift from a friend of mine. And it says, I'm too old for this, and I'm not going to say the word, but basically I am. And we're going to see what's in here and whether we should finish it or frog it. Huh. Interesting. This is a pattern for The Goat Cow by Laura Dobratz, who is my friend who owns Four Pearls in Winter Haven, and also a good yarn in Sarasota. And in here, it's kind of randomness. I'm not even sure it goes with that pattern. Oh, and a bouquet of minis from Blue Sky Woolstock. I'm not sure. I don't think any of this goes together. Oh, but my favorite Notions box is in here. This was from the Super Summer Knit Together of 2018, maybe? I don't know. But it's a very well-stocked little Notions box, and I had no idea where that was. So that's getting set aside. And a tape measure from my SSK girlfriends that they have given me at some point in the past. And I'm going to tell you right now that these three things are completely unrelated and do not go with the goat cowl at all, because the goat cowl actually calls for, pretty sure I already knitted this anyways, it calls for 7 colors of Emma's Practically Perfect Smalls. And, yeah, that's not this. The yarn is held double throughout, and I'm pretty sure that it's calling for fingering weight, and this is not that. So this is an easy decision. We don't even have to frog it because it never got started, and it's basically just a bag of nonsense. So that was easy. I can put that back into stash and use the bag for something else. Let's see what's in here, though. This, I'm hoping, will be more exciting. This is actually a Star Knits project bag. And I'm not sure where I got this one, but if you're following along at home, this is the Wide XL Pocket project bag from Star Knits. Hi, Lena. Oh! This is exciting! I didn't know where this was. And this is the best. This is my partially done Carbeth sweater. I knit a Carbeth while Scooter and I were traveling through Maine several years ago from some wool that we actually picked up while we were in Maine. So all of my yarn for the sweater is in this giant bag. And this was a very limited run that my friend did at her mill in Maryland. The mill is no longer there, but I still love Ruth Lamb. Hi, Ruth Lamb. But it was 4 skeins and 1 partial of a Shetland 3-ply bulky. And I decided, since it wasn't enough for me to sell to anybody or bother with labeling, it would be my own sweater. So this is very exciting. I don't think everything's in here, but I'm going to keep going on this one. So this one is definitely going to get finished. And actually, these are going to go in that bag. This is some more nonsense. There is, let's see, there's a Laura Nelkin kit here for, I can't tell because I can't get it open, for the Kronos. I think that's a, Kronos is, I believe, a, not a necklace, but a cuff. So that's a Laura Nelkin kit. It's completely unstarted. And this is the Crayola something. That's another Laura Nelkin kit that I've never started. This seems to be where I stashed all of my Laura Nelkin kits that I've never started. I don't know. And this is another Laura Nelkin kit for the Laxo socks with a beautiful watercolor sock skein from Linus de Nord, made in Italy. That's kind of interesting. Oh, this is good. This is the sleeve for the Carbeth cowl. I remember now that I got as far as the sleeves on the body of the sweater, and then I put the stuff to knit the sweater into a separate bag so that it would be more portable and I wouldn't have to drag the whole big thing around. And yes, there is all of my instructions are in here, and this is the sleeves for the sweater. So that's going to go together, and that's very exciting. Can't believe I actually found both pieces of the same project. Those are going to go into stash because I will do those at some other time. I didn't start them. I don't have to frog them. And the sweater's going to take me a minute. Let's see what's in here. Ooh, this is another one that is just randomness and storage. These are all my Borare yarns from my friend Jenny in Orkney. These are my personal stash Borare yarns, and they are absolutely delicious. I actually knit a sweater, or no, I knit a hat out of one of these, and I intended to knit the rest. That's completely random. Oh, and here's the sample that I knit up of, believe it or not, Funky that I couldn't find. And there's a sewing project in the bottom that needed some hand embroidery. I remember what that one is. So that one can get finished. And the rest is just 75 pairs of zing needles. I'm not sure why. And my embroidery scissors. And that's where all of my darning needles went. So this will get finished. I'll leave that out. And these will go into my stash with the rest of my yarns until I'm ready to knit up some more Borare. I just finished a cowl. I need to write up the pattern for the cowl that I made. And I also did a very simple hat. And I've been wearing that this winter. So that just gets put back in stash, as does this random skein of the Leicester Longwool Tuscadero. I'll just stash that right there until, I'll just put it back in my stash down here. Okay. All right. Well, that was productive. I have something to do a little hand work on, and then that's ready to get quilted. And I have my sweater to get to work on, and the rest of the stuff goes into my stash. Whew. You need to go look in your stash, look in your UFO bin, room, whatever, no judgment, and see what kind of fun things you can find too. And then we'll finish them together. So I'm going to post on social media as I work through the Carbeth sweater and also the other two projects that I mentioned I was working on before. So that's Finish It or Frog It. I think that was a pretty easy decision. I hope next time it'll be a little bit more difficult because I'm so excited to find that Carbeth. That's great. The next segment is all of my sewing stuff. So like probably a lot of you, I am multi-craftual, and I like to have multiple projects going in multiple disciplines and use all the creative parts of my brain. And so right now I am doing some hand sewing. I finished this at some point last year. It is a Riley Blake bench pillow. So this gets a pillow inside of it. And I like to put them on my bed. I don't really have a bench. The bench is still at the farm. So I have one for each month. And this is the December one that I'm too late to put out for this year. But it's supposed to look like ornaments hanging off of branches of trees. And so I finished it, and then I got it quilted by my friends at the Polka Dot Pincushion, and then I put a back on it so that the pillow can go inside. And then I have sewn the binding to the front, and then I turn it over to the back, and then I hand stitch the binding in place on the back so it has a nice finished look. And I like that better than turning things inside out, like sewing around the edge and turning them inside out. I like instead to sew them together and then put a binding around the edge. So I'm working on that. And then another UFO that I have pulled out, because I'm doing a UFO challenge with the Polka Dot Pincushion this year. And so this is, I'm almost embarrassed to say, this is a project that has been languishing since about 1998. And it's going to get finished this year. So this is a tree skirt that is a quilt as you go project. So it has the backing and the batting, and then when you sew the strips onto the front, when you press it back, you have actually also quilted the back and assembled it at the same time. So the quilt skirt, the tree skirt, is actually 6 of these diamonds that are then attached at the edge to each other and become a 6-pointed star tree skirt. And I'm really excited to get this done because I don't have a tree skirt. I haven't had a tree skirt because I was making a tree skirt. And pretty much every year since 1998, I've thought, I'm going to finish that tree skirt. But I really haven't known where the tree skirt was. And it seemed like admitting defeat to actually go buy a tree skirt to replace the one that I'm making. So by next year, I will have this tree skirt done. Actually, by the end of the month, I'll have this tree skirt done. And I will show you my progress on social media as well, as I always do. And then it will go in with my holiday linens and be all ready to go next year for hopefully a new artificial tree. Because mine is also probably from 1998 and is getting a little old and tattered looking. So those are my 2 projects that I'm sewing on right now, and I'm hoping to probably get those finished in the next week or so. So maybe next week I'll have new projects to show you that I'm working on with my trusty Bernina. It's the K Facet edition that came out a couple of years ago. And for the first time in my life, I actually bought myself a new sewing machine. I have always used old Singers, vintage Singers. I have a 185, I have a 201, I have a 66, a 99, and 2, possibly 3 featherweights. I know I have a black one and I know I have a white one, but I feel like there's another one there somewhere, another black one, but I haven't found it yet because I'm still unpacking from the move. I may have sold it, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know I still have my green one and my blue one, my old Singers. So when the K Facet edition Bernina, completely computerized, beautiful, gorgeous machine was announced, my wonderful partner John said, "You never buy a sewing machine for yourself, and this one does all the things." And all of my Singers, well, most of my Singers only do straight forward and backward. I do have my grandmother's, I think it's a Slantomatic, it's a 500 series that has cams in the top that make it do other things. But most of mine are just old battle axe machines that go forward and backward. So I was really excited to have options, and I picked that one up. So spending time with Kafe in my home studio, working on my sewing projects, it's kind of my zen. I'm able to knit wherever I go, but because the machine stays in its cabinet and I have to purposely go down there to use it, it's kind of my happy place, and it kind of forces me to focus on what I'm doing. Number one, so I don't run my finger under the needle. But number two, because there aren't any distractions around me, it's a very, very quiet, warm, cozy place in my home. So I'm really enjoying sewing too. So if you are a sewist or enjoy quilting, you can comment down below and we can talk about our sewing projects too. So that being said, we're getting toward the end of our little time together here. And I did want to remind you about our two things coming up on down the road. And the first is January 25th here in Northeast Ohio. The Rust Belt Fiber Shed Symposium is happening at 78th Street Studios in Cleveland on January the 25th. And that will be a live and in-person event. There will be a lot of topics, a lot of discussion topics, learning tables, and I will be vending. Melinda will be there shearing sheep in January in Cleveland. So that should be interesting as well. The day before that is my live sale on the Wool and Fiber Arts channel on Facebook. So on Friday at 2:30 that week, we will be doing a live sale here from the studio. And then on down the road, a little tiny bit farther, coming at me fast, is the Nash Yarn Fest, which will be our first big show of 2025. And I'm super excited because Melinda's coming with me and we're going to Nashville and I'm going to have barbecue at Peg Leg Porker, which is pretty much the only reason I have any interest in going to Nashville. It's usually pretty crowded and loud. And I love going to see my friends. My friends Joe and Lindsay both live in Nashville, so I'll be excited to see them and have some peg leg porker and maybe sell some yarn. If you haven't signed up for Nash Yarn Fest yet, you do need to go over to the website and get that done because a lot of things are selling out really fast. They are having Arnie and Carlos there. And the show is really interesting because Friday evening they have a preview event, a ticketed preview event. And then I'll be vending all day Saturday. And that's it. There's no Sunday to this show. So you either go Friday night or you go Saturday. And like I said, a lot of things are selling out. Their classes are selling out. The meet and greets and VIP events with Arnie and Carlos, I believe, are already waitlist only. So if you're in or near Nashville and you haven't heard of the Nash Yarn Fest yet, Modern Daily Knitting is hosting it, and it is going to be epic. I am so excited. I will have a lot of new yarns in the booth, and I'll have Melinda along with me, and between the two of us, we can answer all your questions, or hope we can. So that's really exciting. So in 2 weeks, you can see me here in the Cleveland area, and in 2 months, you can see me in Nashville. So it seems that we have come to the end of our show together today, and I am really looking forward to next week talking about the fleece and the uses for the Cheviot sheep and spending a little bit more time with you, showing you my knitting, my sewing, my spinning, and enjoying a cup of tea together or whatever beverage you're drinking at this time. For me, it'll be tea. So, again, I'm Amy Manco from the Ross Farm. This has been Sheep and Wool School, presented by the Ross Farm, and you can go to our website at therossfarm.com if you want to participate in our anything along, any kind of craft, whatever you do, pick up some Cheviot, and let's experience it together. And until next week, we'll see you soon. Bye.